To complete this week's project, you'll want to use the template and go through each item, delete this part and put your own description for the report. Okay, so it's the purpose of the report and your approach. This is going to vary from person to person, but you just want to summarize everything you've done. So you might want to come back and complete the introduction after you've done all the steps. That way your mind can be fresh for what we did in this project. Data collection, sampling the data. You're supposed to talk about how you sample your data. Let's see what they say here. You're supposed to select a random sample of 50 houses. So you'll want to do that similar to what we did in the first assignment. So you go back to that video that I made if you're having trouble with what to do there. What else? Scatter plot. We've talked about making a scatter plot before. I've had a couple of students just reach out to me with trouble about the scatter plot. So let me do that one more time in Excel. Scatter plot of square feet as the X variable and listing price is the Y variable. So let me just move this data. This is just a random data set. This isn't what you want. You want to go grab the data set for your chosen section and complete it just like we've done in the past. So to make a scatter plot, I want to make a scatter plot of this column. And I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard and then click and drag this column. Okay, Control lets you select two different sections in two different areas. I want to exclude the dollars per square foot. So you could actually just delete that too if you want, and then you can just click and drag. Either way, just make sure you're only selecting the data that you want to make a scatter plot out of. Then we go to Insert in Excel. Scatter plot button's right here. Make our scatter plot. And right now it's got listing price as my X variable. The listing price is not the independent variable because the listing price isn't changing the square foot. You don't say, I'm going to sell a house for $200,000. Better go add 100 square feet to it, right? So we have to change which one's on which side. And this is the part in Excel I always have to check out. I think it's select data when I looked last time. So right-click the scatter plot, choose select data. Oh, okay. So there's other ways of looking at it too. A student sent me a picture that looked different than this. If it shows like X values and Y values, you'll just want to switch the code in those two places. Copy and paste one code into the other one. Just make sure you don't lose the other one when you paste. Don't paste over it. But for mine, I think all I have to do is click switch row and column. No, because now it does. Okay, now it's all messed up. Let's try that again. It's not switch row and column. This is okay. This is horizontal. Huh. This says the Y values are in the horizontal, but that's not what's happening. Let's click edit. Oh, okay. This is what another student sent me. Okay, so since I didn't have a straightforward process, let me do that again. Right-click this. If you need to change the X and Y axes, right-click the scatter plot. Go down to something. What do we do? Select data. Select data is the option you want. And then you want to edit the data. Don't click switch to row and column like I did. That actually, now that I think about it, that doesn't make any sense. So I need to switch this and this code, right? So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to open up my Notepad program. You can open up Windows, whatever you want to do, and paste it there. So I've got my X values. I'm going to delete them. I'm going to copy my Y values over here, and then I'm going to copy and paste my X values where they're supposed to go. It shouldn't be that tight. I guess it is. That's a pretty perfect correlation. Oh, it's because oh, no, it's just swapped anyway. Okay, that was weird. It showed a perfect straight line, which doesn't make any sense. But then this looks more realistic. So you can see the square footage is now on the X-axis, and the listing price is on the Y-axis. So we swapped them like we wanted. So just make sure your scatter plot. That's one thing I have to look out for. Creating a histogram. I'll do that real quick. Select the data that you want. Remember, if you haven't done this part yet, if you didn't delete that middle one, click and drag. Oh wait, a histogram of the two variables. So click and drag just one column, because a histogram is a univariate type of graph. You're only graphing one variable at a time. This button right here gives you the histogram. You don't want to have 3 bins though. I don't know why that's the default. So let's right click it. I want to change how the chart is created. Let's try select data again. No, that's all fine. There's 3 bins. It's 3 bars. It's not good because you can't really see any sort of distribution. It's just flat. Change chart type maybe. Yeah, we want a histogram, but I don't want it to be 3 bins. I do everything in Google Sheets, but format chart area, that might be it. Okay, so let's right click, format chart area. Chart options. It's just changing the color. I don't want that. Oh, I think I got it. A number of bins. Change that to 5 or something. Okay, do it. All right, there we go. Okay, so let me repeat that. So with my histogram, when I had 3 bins, I right click. I go down to format chart area. Click chart options. I chose the horizontal axis from that drop down menu. And then choose this button over here. Man, that's a lot of buttons to change something that should be pretty simple. And then I think it was, yeah, it's axis options. And the number of bins, probably 5 is good. You could do 6. It's a relative. It's like a. There's no one concrete answer. You just want to have definitely more than 3 because 3 usually means some sort of flat line effect, or it's not really showing the distribution well. And then that's histogram for square feet. You want to do the same thing for listing price. Make a histogram. Summary statistics. We did that in assignment 1. That's mean, median, standard deviation, that type of thing. Interpret the graph. This is where you get to make your own interpretation. Like with this data set that I have here, I'd say my graph. Actually, I can't remember if we talked about the normal distribution at this point. This is my first time teaching the newly revamped MAT 240, but this is not normally distributed because it doesn't make a bell-shaped curve. That's one thing I would say. I would say it's got a pretty fairly large amount of spread. There's some small data values for square footage. There's some houses with some really small square footage. There's some houses with really large square footages, and not a lot in between. Okay, there's some in between, but not a huge amount right now. And then I would also relate that to the standard deviation. The standard deviation for this data set is going to be relatively high compared to other ones because of all that spread. And that's what it says, to interpret the graph and statistics. So a standard deviation measures how far apart your data set is from the mean. Okay, so this data set, the mean is going to be somewhere around here, and there's a good amount of data that's far away, so it's going to have a high standard deviation. The regression model, so this is just like what we did before, and I just showed how to make that scatter plot, right? So make the scatter plot, and it wants the line of best fit in the regression equation, so we haven't done that, the line of best fit. So let me put the scatter plot back up there just like what we did before. We need a trend line. Let's see if I can remember how to do that. I've done it before. I think it was just back here. Okay, so if you click the scatter plot, you click chart design, add chart element, trend line, and then linear. There's our trend line that they're asking for. It wants the line of best fit in the it also wants the regression equation. So we got the line of best fit. So to get the regression equation, I think if you click on the blank area, if you left click, using these options over here, there is a regression equation option. I just have to find it. Excel has a sea of options, and it's probably just because I don't use it as much as I use. Google Sheets is just real quick for all the data stuff I do. It's probably just because I'm not used to using it very much. There's got to be an easier way, though. I mean, like I do it with code in the other videos too, like that quick equals intercept thing that we did before. I'm just going to be clicking around buttons looking for the regression equation. Well, here, I got one more idea. Chart design, add chart element, trend line, more trend line options. Oh yeah, this is it. Okay, so if you don't want to do the previous way. This is the previous way of making the least squares regression equation. You can just click anywhere on your, well, it's not anywhere, but click a blank area, left click a blank area on your Excel file. Click Add Chart Element, go down to Trend Line, more trend line options, and then over here on the right side, oh, I could have sworn that was it. Oh yeah, it's this button right here, the histogram looking button. You scroll down, and then there it is, Display Equation on Chart. This is the same equation you get if you do just like what I did in the other videos. You know, if you want the slope, type in equals slope, y variable first, so it's A2 to A16, and put a colon in between those two. Oops, and then put a comma, and then your x variable, so that's C2 to C16. There's your slope, okay, which is, oh, it's because I forgot to switch my x and y like I did before. Right, I have my y variable where it's not supposed to be. So let's put this up here, copy this over here, and copy this over there. Now my x and y are in the correct place. And now you'll see I get the same slope, right? This is the 106.58. That's the slope I just got from the code that I typed. Equals intercept. And then click and drag for the y variable, or you could type the code in like I did, just like what we've done before. There's our y-intercept, just like what they have on there. Those are two different ways of getting the same equation, okay? It says, based on your graph, explain whether the regression model can be developed for data, for the data and how. I mean, I'm not super excited about that prompt because you don't want to just look at a graph and decide whether you can make a regression equation. But what you could say is that, hey, this graph has a fairly positive, straightforward linear trend, right? They're dots, they get some scatter, but they are going up as you read it from left to right. So based on the scatter plot, yeah, we can move ahead and make a least squares regression equation, but I don't like the flexibility of just looking at a graph trying to eyeball it. I want to look at the correlation coefficient. Correl, remember like we did in assignment 2, equals Correl, click and drag one of the columns, doesn't matter which. The order doesn't matter for this one, it does for the slope and the intercept. And 0.69, like our textbook says, that's a moderate correlation. That number makes me think that a least squares regression equation is a good idea. So I'll leave this for you. This is like what we did in the first assignment. Calculate R. I just did that, right, with the correlation coefficient. That's R. It wants you to put the regression equation, which we have right there. Interpret the regression equation like we did in assignment 2. You know, tell me what the slope tells you based on the x and the y variable. The slope tells you how much the y variable is changing based on one increase in the x variable. So the listing price is going up $106 for every one increase in square footage. Strength of the equation, that's where you want to point to this. Mine is a moderate strength, but like our textbook says, anything over 0.8 is considered strong. And it's positive because it's increasing as we read this graph starting from the left and going to the right. Using it to make predictions. What do the instructions say here? It doesn't say any specific. It doesn't say a specific prediction to make, so I guess you can pick your own number. So what that means is if I want to make a prediction, like I'll say I have a home I'm trying to sell that's 1,600 square feet. What you're doing is you're plugging, you got y equals 106.58x plus 37659. That's our regression equation. You're putting in 1,600 in for x. And then simplifying. So 106.58 times 1,600 plus 37659. So I'm predicting a home price of $208,000 for a 1,600 square foot home in this region, right? I mean, where I live in Maine, even with the bump that we've had since COVID, that still is wicked high. and summarize your findings. So this is where you're putting together the interpretations we made in assignment 1 and assignment 2. So I'll leave that for you too. I hope that helps with the technical details using Excel. If you're using Google Sheets, in my class I've said Google Sheets is okay. Let me know and I can make another video for you that focuses on Google Sheets.